Good morning, good afternoon, Happy New Year. Welcome to this webinar that I've designed to tackle, discuss, come up with sort of a game plan for passing F electrical and P power in one calendar year. The title is How to Pass F Electrical and PE Power in 2026. So it's an AND gate. Okay. Those of you who are working with digital systems, Boolean logic, AND gate basically means that both of them. So it's not just or one or the other, it's an AND gate. So is it even possible to pass the F electrical and PE power back to back? I only included just very selected testimonials, student success stories from my course community, from LinkedIn. There are people, tagging me on Reddit all the time as well. It is totally doable, regardless of your starting point, whether you're busy working full time, whether you're a recent graduate, whether you've been out of school for a long time. So this is totally doable. Okay, an interesting story that I like to share is that of a recent student of mine. He had been out of school for 30 years, 30 years, okay, from college to passing the PE exam. His timeline back to back was about 15 months. He enrolled in my FE electrical program, the live training program, about 3 weeks into the program, and back to back passed his FE electrical and PE power exam. So this is 30 plus years out of school, and he sent me this message with an email with a picture, and he's like, Wasim, please show this picture, show this photo to your future students as to what it takes to get these exams. And these are his personal notes that he took. His name is Keith, and now he's a licensed PE in the state of California. So it's totally doable. All right. Okay, so let us get started. I want to give a very brief introduction of myself. My name is Wasim Asghar. I'm a licensed PE in the US and Canada. I've authored several books on the topic of FE electrical, PE power. In both categories, these are the highest rated books with the highest number of reviews, 5-star rating. And I also run popular exam prep programs for FE electrical and PE power exam preparation. Some of you know me from my books. Some of you have probably seen me on YouTube. Some of you have heard about me from your colleagues, your peers, or maybe on LinkedIn or Reddit. So the housekeeping items for this session is that, first of all, anybody who's doubting whether this is recorded or live, this is live. I often get asked questions on my webinars. Is this a live session or is this a recording? This is a live session, okay? And I want to make it interactive. I'm very pleased with the comments that you guys are providing and the engagement. So please feel free to participate and ask questions along the way. I'll try my best to keep up. And at the end, I will also have an open Q&A session where you can ask your specific scenario-based questions, okay? And please stay muted by default. Everybody is mute. And you can raise your hand if you have anything to contribute via audio. But feel free to provide your comments in chat. Actively use chat for participation. And as I said, at the end, I'll have an open Q&A session. And this session is being recorded. And everybody who is attending the session, I will be sharing this recording with all of you, okay? So who is this session for? When you look at this list, you'd be like, okay, Wasim, this is for everyone, I guess, right? And to be quite honest, it is. So whether you're first time FE or PE exam taker, you're going to be benefiting from this. Whether you're in a repeat situation, you're going to benefit from this. Whether you're a recent graduate who is trying to make an entry into the job market, and after getting your degree diploma, you're finding that, in addition to everything that you've completed over the last 4 years, employers are still asking. And in fact, I was going to include a couple of screenshots of some of the jobs for even entry-level engineers. Those of you who have been applying for jobs can probably relate to it. There is an increased trend amongst the employers to ask for EID certification. Okay, so it applies to the recent graduates as well. Internationally trained engineers. There are a lot of internationally trained engineers in my program in the US. I would say up to 25-30% of engineers are foreign trained. So a common question is whether me being a non-US graduate, will I be able to pursue the P license? So I'll address some of those questions as well. And if you are a working professional, I would say 95% of the folks in my P Power program are working full time, and finding time to prepare for this exam is one of the bigger challenges. And even at the FE electrical level, if you have been out of school for some time, you're probably working full time. So for working professionals as well, you're going to find a lot of actionable items and tips. And seasoned engineers who've been out of school for 10, 15, 20 years, hopefully you guys are going to find the value over here. What you can expect to walk away from this session: a better understanding of FE electrical and computer and the PE power exam preparation, a realistic timeline for preparing for the FE electrical and PE power exam in 2026. First of all, it is totally doable to get both of these exams done back to back within 12-month time period, and a few study strategies and tips that can fit your personal and professional schedule. So where does a P licensure fit in the career growth? There are two elements to it. One can be extrinsic, which is leverage that you get in your career in terms of your growth, recognition, and stability. And the intrinsic one has to do with your self-respect, self-confidence, your the boost in confidence in terms of, okay, now I have this credential, which is extremely difficult to obtain. Along the way, you're going to find that it will help you grow your competency as well, especially if you go through MAFE electrical and P power programs. And it will also help you gain respect amongst your colleagues. People are going to instantly start looking at you differently once you have a PE next to your name. And the monetary benefits, for example, this is sort of a LinkedIn direct message chat with one of my students. He got his PE license and is like, well, see, not only did it help me with the jobs, I was also able to sort of increase my salary by $35,000. So, which is very common. So the pathway, so I'm going to slow down a little bit over here and explain you what is the typical pathway. And I'm going to also comment a little bit on internationally trained engineers and folks who may not have typical orthodox traditional path towards the P licensure. The first one, if you go to the NCS website, it says that you need a ABAT accredited engineering degree, EAC. Interestingly, not all engineering programs, even in the US, are EAC ABET accredited. So if within the US, not all the engineering programs are ABET accredited, you can imagine that anybody who is internationally trained engineer from anywhere in the world, right, the likelihood of ABET accredited programs is very, very low. So the good news is that NCES, okay, the body that basically conducts these exams and helps with licensing process, and even once you become a licensed engineer, you can have a profile over there. You have to do continuing education and keep your references, the whole 9 yards. They also provide credential evaluation. All right, so that is something that they do, and they have streamlined it over the years. So let's say you are attending this webinar and you're an internationally trained engineer and you're thinking that, you know what, maybe the licensure is not for me, maybe I won't be able to qualify even if I prepare for these exams and pass these exams just because my degrees are outside the US. That's not true. All you got to do is go to nces.org, create a profile, start a credential evaluation process. And the good news is that most of the states don't require you to have that credential evaluation completed in order to take the FE exam. And a lot of states don't even require that for you to take the PE exam. So FE exam is the first exam that you take. All you got to do for most of the states is to create a profile and register basic details, basic information, pay $225 to schedule exam, look at a testing center close by, and then basically just go ahead and take this exam. After you take the exam, the FE exam and pass the exam, you can get EID certificate, which is recognized at the state level, and they issue you a formal certificate with a number and everything. You can put it on your LinkedIn. You can have a number associated. You can call yourself as an EIT. In some states, it's called EI. And that signals to basically all the employers that you are on your path to licensure. And as I mentioned, if you go to Indeed or Monster or LinkedIn and search for entry level or even intermediate level engineering jobs, a lot of employers lately have been asking for that exam and EIT certification. This is the first exam that you have to pass. Now, this piece in the middle over here, work experience, this is also interesting. Why? Because a lot of states have now decoupled the experience requirements from the PE exam. So once you pass the FE exam, you can just jump right into the PE exam preparation, even if you don't have 4 years of experience. And different states have slightly different requirements with regards to the experience. So some states will give you exemptions for things such as or credit for doing your graduate degree. So it means that you will only need 3 years of experience if you have a master's degree. And in the state of California, they've reduced the experience requirement even further to facilitate, especially if you are ABET accredited. So this kind of varies, but 4 years of experience is a good rule of thumb. Now, the second part of this statement is also a little bit ambiguous under a PE. So what does that mean? Different states have different interpretation about this. Most of the states require at least 3 PE references, and the stronger the references, the better it is for your application. But you don't necessarily have to have a supervisor who's a PE. It will be good, but it's not a necessity, right? Especially if you have multiple PEs vouching for your experience. Most of the states are strict about the minimum number of PE references. So if you meet, let's say, 3 or 4 minimum requirements for the PE references, then the other references can potentially be people who don't have a PE license. Okay, so navigating this is kind of state by state specific, but generally speaking, once you pass these exams and once you have progressively increasing responsibilities in the roles that you have been employed at, it is generally not a big deal. Okay. So there's a question somebody's asking, can I prove my engineering experience outside of the US? I've worked for more than 15 years. 100%. So a general requirement on that front is that wherever you were working, if you can have somebody who is licensed engineer in that jurisdiction vouch for your reference, most of the state boards are going to give you credit for that experience, either fully or definitely partially, right? But that still does not reduce this requirement of 3 PEs, US PEs, okay, 3 or 4 US PEs. And there are certain states who take a little bit more lenient approach towards international experience. There are certain states that are a little bit more stringent about international experience. Some states are going to give you full credit for that. Some states are going to give you partial credits for that. And in rare cases, especially if you're unable to produce some references, then they may not give you any credit for that. Most of this, about 20 plus states now allow you to take the PE exam right after passing the FE exam. And from a case by case standpoint, imagine that if you're approaching a state board and asking or putting in an application or even asking them questions about hypothetical scenarios, the fact of the matter is that you have a very strong case to make once you've passed these exams, right? I have had students who reached out to their state board. NCS credential evaluation showed some gaps in terms of their foreign degree. And some students reached out to their state board and they're like, I have over 10, 11, 12, 15 years of experience. Can you give me an exemption for taking these physics courses or, chemistry courses or biology courses? I've passed both FE exam and PE exam, and I'm technically competent as demonstrated by my experience and me passing these exams. And the state board gave them an exemption. The discussion is very different once you have these big items taken care of. So what I typically find during these webinars and questions I get from my students is that a lot of people get fixated on the experience piece, right? Will I qualify? Will I not qualify? I have helped thousands of engineers over the last 10 plus years prepare for FE electrical and PE power exams. And I can tell you, I don't have even a single example of somebody who was not given a pathway to licensure by the state board, okay, or by NCS. After passing these exams. Not even a single example. In some cases, they may say that, okay, just accumulate a couple of more years of experience or one more year of experience or generate 2 more references, one more reference, and we will accommodate you. So the big items are these 2 Herculean challenging exams. This is 5 hours and 20 minutes, and this is 8 hours. And the state boards are making it easier and easier for everyone to take a stab at these exams by removing the obstacles in the form of credential evaluation. Almost every state board allows you to take the FE exam without any experience requirement, without any credential evaluation, without any degree evaluation. And more state boards are allowing you to take the PE exam right after the FE exam without any experience requirement, right? So once you pass these filters, overcome these hurdles and obstacles, communication is extremely different, right? In the sense that now that you've taken care of these 2 items, right? Then you can start working on your documentation references, and every application is approved on a case by case basis. Somebody will be assigned to your application at that particular state board, and they will be working closely with you and asking you questions. If there are any doubts, you can help fill those up, and they will be giving you a pathway. Up until you tackle these exams, everything is just hypothetical, right? Because you haven't checked these boxes, and these are the two biggest filters that they're applying. And the good news, and since we're talking about internationally trained engineers, is that in the US, the licensing process for professional engineers is very, very fair in the sense that even the US grads have to go through the same process that everybody else from outside the US has to, right? There are no exceptions. I have my license in Canada as well as in the US. So in Canada, if you're a Canadian university graduate, you don't have to take any technical exams. But in the US, whether you are a US grad or internationally trained engineer, you have to take both of these technical exams. So the playing field is very, very leveled and very, very fair. Doors are open for you when you become a PE, tons of opportunities. You can start consulting on your own as well. There are some other requirements that you have to meet. You have to get a certificate of authorization, but the primary requirement is to have a PE license. At your employer, whether or not you guys do the design work and sign and seal documents, drawings, specifications, you will have the authority and privilege to basically sign off on drawings and use your stamp and seal. Higher salaries for the same role. If somebody is working as a PE and a non PE, they will have higher salaries compared to the one who's essentially doing the same thing. Okay. Leadership roles, once you get your PE license, you get more credibility, there is more respect, there is more privilege, there is more accountability, and also expectations. Job security and mobility, when the economy takes a downward turn, electrical PEs or PEs in general have more job security because there are few electrical PEs, especially in the market, and employers want to hold on to them as much as they can because when things take an upward turn, it's very difficult to find electrical PEs. So all the good reasons to pursue the P license. Now, you might be wondering as to why engineers procrastinate. I would say some of it has to do with the questions that you're seeing in the chat, right? Some of it has to do with analysis paralysis. I'm not saying that the reason that you're asking questions is so that you can essentially stay in the analysis paralysis mode, but overthinking can also be a part of this process that, I don't have enough information about where to get started, whether it's even worth it for me, and whether I'll be able to do it. So that I think lingers at the back of mind for a lot of people in general. Procrastination, when we have an unclear path to follow, we can sort of get distracted by the what if scenarios and whether it's even worth it or not. Okay. And that, I mean, I fall victim to it all the time whenever I'm doing something new or figuring something out myself. Okay. But typically, the major reasons of procrastination are full-time jobs. You're already working 40 plus hours, and then you have to create time, find time somewhere, somehow, in order to prepare for these exams. Personal responsibilities, family responsibilities. The age bracket that I work with mostly are people who are in their 30s and 40s, especially for the P power exam preparation. It's at that time and age, when people have kids, young kids especially, and that can be very demanding. Sometimes aging parents, that can be demanding, life events happening. So it can be stressful to find time. Limited daily energy. So I tell my students that managing time is one thing, and equally important, if not more important, is managing your daily energy, right? If you're preparing for this exam, it has to be on a list of top priorities. If it is item number 11 on list of top 10 things that you are worried about or concerned about, they will never get done. It has to be in top 3, not 11 on 10, but top 3 out of top 10. And not knowing where to start. So that's essentially what I was saying. If the path is unclear, right, it's difficult to sort of map it out. It's difficult to sort of follow it if it's unclear. But if you know the steps that you need to follow, it becomes a lot easier. So, for example, weight loss, it's kind of a healthy goal, very common New Year resolution, right? But it can be very open ended. But what are the paths that you need to follow based on your particular case, your particular scenario, and your particular, schedule, time, and resources that you have available, and how you can go about it. So once things are laid out in a stepwise manner, for example, on this previous slide, I told you the big items over here are these two exams, and nothing is really holding you back from taking these exams, especially starting with the FE exam. And once you pass the FE exam, there are 20 plus states almost that allow you to take the P exam. And then in parallel, you can continue with your credential evaluation. In parallel, you can continue accumulating the experience. In parallel, you can continue getting the references in order, setting up your experience record form, and the whole 9 yards, right? But if we stuck in this, I guess, stay stuck in this limbo of, how do I go about it? I want to become a P license engineer and whatnot, but don't know where to start. It can be stressful, and that leads to procrastination. 2026 will lead to 2027, 2027 will lead into 2028, and so on and so forth. Okay, so I want to do a quick review of these two exams. I'll go through a specification review side by side, and we'll answer your questions along the way. So the first exam is the FE exam. If anybody's still unclear, this is the first exam you got to tackle, and this is the second exam you got to tackle. I'm also going to comment on exemption. This is also one of the very exciting topics that I get, questions that I get from students. Wasim, can I skip this exam? Right? Exemption. The short answer is that the probability is very low. Okay. The reason, simple reason, is that the state boards want you ideally to be taking both of these exams. Some of the state boards might give you lots of caveats here, okay, guys? Might give you credit for the experience that you have. Sometimes the threshold is as low as 8 years, other times it's as high as 12 or 16 years. And some state boards don't even exempt you at all. So let's say you got an exemption from Texas, let's say you got an exemption from Nevada or Colorado, and you took the P exam, you got your P license, and you moved to California, or you moved to New York, or you moved to Pennsylvania. They're not going to give you a reciprocal license. Why? Because you have to seek exemption from them again. And chances are, especially like a state like New York, highly unlikely they're going to give you exemption. And then you will not be able to call yourself as a licensed PE in the state of New York. And then you'll have to take the FE exam. And even the states that do give you exemption, they make it, they apply a very good filter. Let's leave it at that. So the typical, somebody sent me a message and saying that in Massachusetts, the experience cutoff is 20 years. So you have to have 20 years of experience. And it's not just that you are able to prove in terms of employment, 20 years that you've been employed 20 years. That is experience that they want, that they consider worthy of exemption, right? And I've had scenarios where students, have had to defend their 10 years of experience just to be able to claim 4 years out of the 10 years, right? So with certain edge cases, exceptions aside, the standard path is passing the FE electrical and computer exam and then moving on to the P power exam. So what does the FE electrical and computer exam test you? We're going to review the specification in the next 5 minutes, but it contains 17 sections, practically everything that you learn in your undergraduate engineering coursework in the US. Now, the ECE coursework, EE coursework in the US tends to be a little bit different from that in some of the other parts of the world. And what I find is that in US and Canada, the undergraduate bachelor's degree, bachelor's of engineering or bachelor's of applied sciences, is very broad. There is no concept of real specialization at the undergrad level. If you want to specialize in power systems, you want to specialize in embedded systems, you want to specialize in controls, you want to specialize in telecommunication or whatever, you do that most of the times in your graduate studies. Now, some universities and colleges do have dedicated streams in undergraduate, but that is more of an exception. And it is reflected in the FE electrical and computer exam specification with 17 sections that you're tested on, ranging from mathematics all the way to software and everything in between: computer systems, computer networks, EMAC, control systems, power systems, circuits, linear systems, communications, everything. So 110 questions in 5 hours and 20 minutes, about 40% failure rate, 30 to 40% failure rate. Every third person who takes this exam fails this exam. And you are given all just 3 minutes per question. And the reference handbook is a good tool. They give you a PDF on the exam. That is the only resource that is available. It's a closed book exam. So for the FE electrical and computer exam, the level of difficulty of the question by question comparison for PE power, if you look at the sample exams even, is easier. But they make the time constraint challenge. You have to solve 110 questions in 5 hours and 20 minutes. Over here, You have only 80 questions and with an increased time, right? But check this out. The passing rate is lower on the P power exam as compared to FE electrical because the P power exam is more convoluted, more challenging exam. Okay. And you have 6 minutes per question. Most of my students complete the P power exam with about 1 hour to 1.5 hours to spare. The nature of the questions for the P power is convoluted, conceptual, theoretical. I like to call them level three understanding concepts, where you basically have multiple knowledge pieces kind of appearing in the same question, multi layered questions. Okay. So when it comes to the P power exam, it is not broad. It is focused on power systems engineering. We're going to look at the specification, the latest October 1st, 2025 specification that was recently updated, and it is very deep. So we are focusing just on power systems, but within power systems, the concepts that we are being tested on can be convoluted, can be abstract. And the only proper way of preparing for and passing the P power exam, in my opinion, is to have level three understanding, which I define as you learning a concept to a degree, to a point where you can actually teach it to somebody else, right? Once you gain that level of competency for the knowledge pieces that are involved, then you can comfortably pass the P Power exam. And that's what we aim for in my P Power program. Time is not an issue, it's not a race against time. The level of difficulty of the questions is higher. Again, it's a closed book exam. We have codes and standards. So we have actually 6 tabs, 6 or 7 tabs for the P Power exam, one for the reference handbook, one for NEC, one for NFPA 70E standard, one for NESC standard, and 3 for hazardous area classification. So 7 tabs are provided to you, 7 PDFs are provided to you in the exam. In terms of preparation timeline, so this was one of the questions that you guys wanted me to answer initially, right? So a typical FE electrical and computer exam preparation timeline is about 3 to 4 to 5 months, generally speaking, right? And a typical P power exam preparation timeline is 4 to 5 to 6, sometimes up to 7 to 8 months preparation. A couple of reasons why there is increased effort. First of all, the PE exam is a little bit more open-ended, so you have to dive a little bit deeply. Folks who are taking the PE power exam, 95+% of them are working full time, whereas over here, close to 90%, but these are a lot of times recent grads as well, so they will have a little bit more discretionary time, right? And if you are taking the FE electrical and computer exam within a few years of your graduation, the exam is actually easier for you, right? It becomes incrementally difficult as time goes by, and then exponentially difficult if you've been out of school for a long time. But I have helped students who've been out of school for 10, 15, 20 years prepare for and pass these exams in the first attempt. Okay. So for latest passing grades, please check out the website ncs.org. You're going to find up-to-date details. So both exams are conducted by NCS. Both are in the same format. The interface of the exams is identical, but they are two completely different exams. One is focused on the breadth and the speed, which is the FE electrical and computer exam. The other one is focused on the depth of your understanding, and it is really all about your conceptual grasp, whether you truly understand the concepts inside out or not. So let us do a review of FE electrical and computer exam specification. I'll take 5 minutes over here. And this is sort of the way that I have basically broken down the entire 17 sections. And you're going to see like folks on even LinkedIn and Reddit use this word big five topics all the time. If you're coming from Reddit or LinkedIn, I use this term a lot on my YouTube channel as well. And when I'm, navigating my live training classes with my students, the big five sections. These account for about 50% of the exam. These are only 5 out of 17 sections, but math, circuits, electronics, power, and digital systems are 50% by weightage. Each one of them is roughly 10% by weightage. So if you do well in these 5 sections, your odds of success on the exam are going to increase. And if you do bad on these sections, you're almost guaranteed to fail. Because if you are below average on 50% of the exam, right, then on the remaining 50% of the exam, which spreads across 12 sections, right, because these are only 5 sections, you have to be significantly above average. And the problem is that since these are only 5 sections, doing better on these sections is easier than doing better on the remaining 12 sections, which are very, very broad. Okay. Another reason is that math, as we know, is part and parcel of every engineering concept. So this basically directly and indirectly impacts everything. And then we have circuit analysis over here, which also impacts multiple sections directly, electronics and power, and indirectly your linear systems, a little bit of even signal processing, a little bit of even electromagnetics. So there are these sections that actually have an outsized impact on everything else. So what is our goal? Our goal is to stay above average as much as possible. Within them, math circuits is a little bit on the easier side. Electronics power is a little bit more on the difficult side. And digital systems arguably is one of the most difficult sections in the entire specification. Then we have the first four sections. So the exam flows in the same order: math, probability, stats, ethics, engineering, economics, properties of electrical materials. I used to call them first five, but since we've already tackled the big five, math is there. So the remaining four sections, and including even mathematics, are relatively easy. So we have to make sure that we try and hit it out of the park if possible, because we can be off to a good start in a positive state of mind. And these are easier sections to basically score points on. I'm going to jump right to the end. Then we have computer sections. These are arguably one of the most challenging sections, especially for folks who have little to no background in computer systems, computer networks, software engineering, digital systems. And if you had the option to skip some of these sections in your undergraduate studies and you decided to do that, then these are going to be even more difficult. And that is true for a lot of my internationally trained engineers who have power systems focus in their undergraduate studies. And over there, they had the option to completely skip these sections. But rest assured that in my FE Electrical and Computer Exam Preparation program, I basically don't assume any background knowledge. I work through everything step by step. And even if you're starting with a zero background, you'll be able to fast track your preparation very easily. The reason that these sections appearing at the tail end of the exam are important is because although they are lightly weighted, these three sections, but they can make it or break it for you on the exam, especially because they are the last few questions you see on the exam. Typically, you are in a time crunch at that stage, and proper time management in the morning half and in the earlier half of your afternoon exam session is extremely important to do well. And most importantly, preparing for these sections effectively during your exam preparation. Okay. Those of you who don't know this, the exam is divided into two halves. There is a morning session and there is afternoon session, almost a 50-50 split between them, like a 52 questions on one, 58 questions on the other, 54, 56. So it's almost evenly split. And electronics is typically the midpoint, the median between the two exams. And the exam basically carries over. In total, you have 5 hours and 20 minutes. So whenever you submit your morning session, you cannot go back to it. The clock stops, you can take 20 minutes of break, and then the clock starts again. Your pool of time is still 5 hours and 20 minutes. Okay. And then there are a whole bunch of miscellaneous sections. The through line in them and that is that they are very heavy on mathematics. So linear systems, signal processing, EMAC, control systems, and communications. So if you have a strong mathematical background, it's going to be super helpful. But these also have a layer of theoretical understanding, which can be really convoluted. In fact, convolution is one of the most difficult topics on the exam. And you'll find that in signal processing. Linear systems also has transforms. Communications also has transforms. We have Laplace transform, Fourier transform, and Z transform, which are purely mathematical in nature, but they have certain practical applications. So what I tell my students is to aim for damage control, try to at least score more than 50% on this exam, on these topics. And they're math intensive, so it's a good idea to revisit the fundamentals, especially the transforms and trigonometry can help you a lot. Okay. So these are the four different buckets or lenses that you can look at as far as FE Electrical and Computer Exam preparation is concerned. And there is little to no opportunity for selective studying on this exam. I tell my students to take this exam only after if they're using my resources after completing them 100%. So anytime you basically cut any corners during your exam preparation, you are increasing the odds of failure because you never know how easy a question can be asked, right, from a different section. So even if a section is difficult, they can ask you simple plug and check question. Or even if a section is easy, they can ask you a really high level, very detailed question. where you'd have to do a lot of reading, a lot of conceptual understanding, maybe not even given the numbers to work with, and you'd have to connect the dots. So the best approach towards exam preparation for FE electrical and P power is to make sure that end to end you cover the entire specification. If you have some areas of strength, double down on them, but try to make sure that the weak areas are not that weak that they end up sinking your boat altogether. All right. So let's move on to the next specification, which was updated on October 1st, 2025. I have tons of students who've gone through my PE Power exam preparation program since 1st of October and passed the exam on the first attempt. I'll share with you guys some of the testimonials. I get tagged on LinkedIn, Reddit, on my course community all the time. So my PE Power program is up to date as per the latest exam specification. So what really happened since October 1st, 2025? They used to have 4 sections with multiple subsections. Essentially, they converted all the subsections into standalone sections. So now instead of 4 sections, we have 9 sections. We have measurement instrumentation. Funny thing about the P Power exam preparation is that the reference handbook that we have for P Power exam preparation is not nearly as helpful as the FE Electrical and Computer Reference Handbook. It's basically FE Reference Handbook, which contains all the disciplines, and electrical is one of the sections. So the help that you get on the exam from the FE Reference Handbook is not comparable to the P Power Reference Handbook. Case in point, the very first item that we see in the P Power exam specification, instrument transformers, completely missing. Not even a mention of instrument transformers on the P Power reference handbook. Does it mean that they're not going to test you on it? Look at the sample exam. They have multiple questions directly and indirectly related to instrument transformers. I have a 5-part lecture series right up front in my program on instrument transformers. So this is the very first item. And there are multiple examples in between. For example, surge protection is not completely not provided. Grounding is just partially provided, right? And an entire section, one of the biggest sections on the P Power exam, protection, 10 to 15 questions, 10 to 15 questions, almost 20% of the entire exam, focus on protection. Nothing at all in the P Power reference handbook. You guys can take a look. If you have access to the P Power reference handbook, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So you're flying blind, right? Essentially, yes, we do have access to NEC and other codes and references, but this is sort of an eye opener at the front end, with the instrument transformers, and at the tail end with the protection section. You don't have much help on the exam with the reference handbook, and several examples in between, small examples, big examples, where the details are basically missing. Now, in section number 7, they included new line items for electrical energy storage, battery ultracapacitors, PV, wind, but zero resources in the reference handbook. Similarly, when you look at relay switches, really nothing for switches, very limited details. And when you look at such protective devices, Boolean logic, they included some minor details, but nothing related to SPDs. So time and again, you are going to encounter roadblocks or omissions, not even roadblocks, omissions, outright omissions, where you cannot lean on the reference handbook for any type of support. So how do we tackle it? How do we go about it? How do we prepare for this exam? The one word that I like to tell my students is to make sure that you have deep understanding, 360-degree understanding, which I call as level 3 understanding. The goal of my PE Power program, and that's a common comment that students make once they go through my PE Power program, and what sets it apart, as compared to everything, all the other programs. Other programs are fixated with numericals, plug and chug, numbers, mechanical approach, square root 330 degrees, punching things in calculator and whatnot. My program is focused on helping you understand the concepts from ground up granularly, right? Individually and in a piece by piece, small basis. You're basically laying bricks one by one and creating a skyscraper. I don't leave anything up for assumption. I basically don't skip any content. If anything, you're going to find me going over and beyond what you probably require. And I'll show you what I mean when I give you a little bit of a demo of my program. So the interesting thing about the PE Power preparation, these are all the things that make it difficult. And then, when the goings get tough, the tough get going. So we basically deploy a different strategy, level 3 learning for P power exam preparation. It's a little bit more draining, a little bit more immersive, a little bit more tiring, exhausting, but at the end of the tunnel, you'll come out as a better power systems engineer. The good news is that those of you who work in power systems, who have field experience, hands on knowledge, who dig power systems engineering, you will be able to bring a lot to the P power exam preparation learning program. You'll have a higher starting point, and along the way you are going to enjoy the learning process because it will help you understand the concepts whether you're starting from zero or whether you are at intermediate or senior level. I have folks who have gone through my program with 20, 30 years of experience, and when they go through the code section, for example, as an example, they're like, Wasim, I have taken multiple trainings in codes and standards, but what I learned from your program is the most effective way of sort of navigating or applying some of that. And the codes NEC actually has a lot of nuances. There are lots of what if scenarios and exception handlings and whatnot, right? So if you adopt a learning mindset in the P power exam preparation, the exam prep is going to be a lot of fun. That's what I tell my students from the get go. And more or less in P power, there are certain sections that are very heavy. So electrical safety, essentially codes and standards, 10 to 15. So this is a big one. Then you have another 10 to 15 in circuit analysis. Over here, three-phase symmetrical and per unit basically impacts everything else in the entire exam specification. If you don't handle square root 330 degrees delta Y transformation um, uh, and symmetrical components and per unit systems well, then you won't be able to make a lot of progress into fault analysis, transmission line models, equivalent circuits of transformers, induction synchronous machines. So it becomes challenging. So that's why circuit analysis is super important. And then, so this is a repetition. And then you have electric power devices. The transformers are a big item. They actually ended up reducing the weightage of motors, rotating machines as our motors, induction and synchronous as part of October 1st, 2025 update. And then they have increased the weightage of protection. Okay. And even transmission distribution is also a very heavy topic. So the good thing about the P power exam preparation is that as you make progress step by step, section by section, it actually helps you develop a higher level of understanding as compared to FE electrical. If you quickly go back to the FE electrical specification that I showed you earlier, math has little to to nothing to do with software, and computer networks has nothing to do with ethics. Engineering economics has nothing to do with electromagnetics. Control systems has nothing to do with properties of electrical materials. Probability has nothing to do with linear systems. So everything is disjointed. It is almost like after making a little bit of a progress, you have to sort of start again and learn something that doesn't necessarily carry over. There are certain exceptions, like circuits impacts multiple sections. Math arguably is basically part and parcel of a lot of different topics, but it's not as streamlined as this. You start with ITs, right? Instrument transformer, CTs, PTs. Insulation testing, ground resistance testing has an overlap. Lightning protection, surge protection has an overlap. Illumination lighting basically bleeds into demand calculations because lighting is one of the biggest loads in the industries, and that basically deals with overlaps with energy management. Grounding and ground resistance testing overlap. The entire codes and standards safety code basically impacts everything else in the entire specification. Then we have three-phase circuits basically impacting your equivalent circuits, your fault analysis, your transmission line models, your transformers, motors, induction machines, and so on. Symmetrical components, again, fault analysis, symmetrical, unsymmetrical faults per unit systems, again, is going to be impacting your equivalent circuits and your transmission line models, power system stability, power flow. And phasor diagrams are inherent in all of our calculations. Single phase circuits, basically the first step to our three-phase circuits. DC circuit analysis, not really as much. This is something that we already tackled in FE electrical. So your KCL, KVL, Thevenin, and Norton is a given. Power electronics, a little bit of a standalone topic. Relays make a comeback later on in protection. Boolean and ladder logic is related to our digital systems, which we go through in FE electrical already. And then we have rotating machines. This is going to come up later on in power flow and power system stability. Your transformers are the heart and soul of power systems engineering. You cannot ever escape transformers. And an increased emphasis on our renewable energy, alternative power generation. And T&D over here, you're going to see a recurring theme. Voltage drop, again, a very core power systems topic. We actually deal with it in NEC as well. Voltage regulation comes up in transformers and motors. Power factor comes up in three-phase systems, single-phase systems. Power quality comes up in power electronics. Fault analysis, as I told you, three-phase per unit and symmetrical components feed into fault analysis, and transformer connections are related to fault analysis as well. Power flow is related to our synchronous generator, synchronous condenser. Our power system stability is related to per unit systems, and so on. And protection at the end, a lot of emphasis in terms of NEC. We don't have any other resource other than NEC for protection, but every single scheme that you use for protection is going to build upon three-phase systems and so on. So it's a lot more fun. I mean, might have scared you guys about the P Power exam, but trust me, I mean, I conduct F electrical life training, P Power life training 3 times a year. And I know that, I have to help the students get through the F electrical to get to the PE power level. I enjoy teaching PE power a lot more because I love power systems engineering, and it is very practical. In FE Electrical, it's a review of your 4 years of undergraduate. It is a stepping stone that we have to overcome, right? But PE power is real fun, although it's much, much more difficult than the FE Electrical and Computer exam. So why most candidates struggle and fail? No clear structure accountability. If you're trying to wing it by yourself, you can. If you don't have proper guidance, mentorship, resources, roadmap support, there'll be higher likelihood of burning out, getting overwhelmed by challenging sections. You may make progress on math, probability, stats, ethics, engineering, economics, bodies, electrical materials, circuit analysis, electronics, boom. That's it. Every time you make progress until transistors, you feel like you cannot go further, right? I have students enrolling in my program, with all different types of starting points, sometimes even non-electrical engineering background, sometimes in a multi-attempt scenario from other programs, or sometimes self-studying and whatnot. It is a very common theme, getting burned out and motivation crash. So, but if you have guidelines, if you have weekly game plan, if you know exactly what we need to do by when, it keeps you on track. And if you ever get stuck, if you need help, and if there's help around, it will keep you motivated. Inefficient studying with little progress. In my programs, I have progress tracker. You exactly know when you complete a handful of lectures, how far you are in the program. Every week in my live training program, we have homework assignments, and then I go through the live training sessions, and then I have a community which is moderated by my two teaching assistants. And if you ever get stuck, you can ask questions. So you probably have heard this, seen this, read this before. Process basically beats motivation. In my opinion, it is 100% correct. And consistency beats intensity. So that's extremely important. These are not permanent problems, and I'll show you how you can overcome them. I've helped tons of engineers go through these and prepare for the exams, FE Electrical P Power and first attempt. You're going to find reviews all over the place on Reddit, LinkedIn, YouTube, Amazon. Everybody has different starting point, but the system and the process I put together works for everyone. This is an interesting, relatively recent post that came up on my course community, and very long post. I just included a section. The student was like, his P power or P licensing journey was a very long and challenging one. Started several years ago, multiple attempts for FE. Never took my program, by the way. He enrolled in my P power program, and he was going to throw in the towel. It was supposed to be his final attempt, and he got it done, right? Nothing unusual until you see this. I don't know if you guys are able to make sense of what you're looking at, right? These are his all FE attempts, multiple attempts. These are all of his P power attempts, right? This was the one attempt that he had with my program, and he got it done. Kudos to him for persevering and not giving up. It's not easy. Each attempt for P power now is about $400, so lots and lots of costs associated. Each attempt for the FE electrical is about $225, right? The journey started in 2012, about 13 years ago, and he didn't give up. He only enrolled in my program in August of 2025 and got this done in the first attempt. He did a LinkedIn post for me, and he was like, Wasim, if I had not passed this attempt, I would have pulled the plug on it, right? This is one of many different stories that I have on the program. And then he basically got his PE power, and the previous attempt was in 2019. So how can I help you prepare for these exams? As I mentioned, have authored best-selling books on the topic of FE electrical and PE power. Some of you are probably already using them. Some of you are here because you know my name or my program. from my books. If you go to Amazon, type FE Electrical, the first book that you're going to see with the largest number of reviews is going to be my study guide for FE Electrical third edition. If you need additional help, I have put together a very comprehensive program where you will have a self-study portion, 250 plus lectures, every single piece of the exam specification broken down into lectures, explaining you the theory, the concepts. Within the lectures, I do practice problems myself. You can watch it or you can attempt those yourself. At the end of every lecture, there is a quiz with multiple questions with detailed solutions. At the end of every section, remember there are 17 sections, there is a computer simulated timed practice exam covering the entire section. Rinse and repeat the whole process and you will be able to complete the entire coursework. Study guide, as I already mentioned, this is a study guide for FE Electrical. And then I have computer simulated practice exams. I strongly recommend you to use NCS sample exam. And then within my on-demand plus live training bundle, you also have full and computer simulated practice exams. And then the weekly live training, which is about to start in less than 2 weeks. Every Saturday and Sunday, we meet 10 a.m. to noon Eastern Standard Time. On average, the sessions are about 2 hours long. Expectation is that during the weekdays, you guys are going to be working through the lectures and the quizzes at your own speed. I'll be uploading the homework assignments on a weekly basis with detailed solutions. You're going to take a stab at those. And then during the live training session, I'm basically going to connect all the dots and rinse and repeat over 12 weeks. By end of March, early April, we'll be done with the entire exam specification. Most of my students take the exam within 4 to 6 weeks of completion of the live training program and get the job done. A lot of them actually jump right into the P-Power program in my summer session, or some of them take a break during summer and then join my fall training session, which starts in September. So the same approach for my P-Power program. I have the on-demand portion self-study. You have 150 lectures. The range of topics is a little bit more condensed, but much more deep. 100 plus quizzes, same approach, mini exams, and then the study guide for P-Power. If you just type P-Power on Amazon, you're going to find that this book basically ranks at the top with the highest number of 5-star reviews. And then the practice exams computer simulated. The P-Power exam is also conducted all year round. It used to be April and October before, but just like FE Electrical, you can take it anytime around. Okay, throughout the year. And then the weekly live trainings are conducted, same process. We have weekly topics. You go through the on-demand content. I give you the homework assignments with the detailed solutions. And during the live classes, I connect the dots for you. And over a 12-week period, we cover the entire specification from top to bottom. So why does this program work? It's really not about intelligence. It's about strategy. It's about planning. It's about execution. It is built for busy professionals because you can tackle the on-demand content at your own, bring your level of understanding to 60, 70, 80%. If you're using the live training program, additional homework assignments are going to further supplement it. And then you have real-time access to me on a weekly basis and through my community to my teaching assistants. Deep understanding, not plug and chug, even at the level of the FE Electrical, I try to break things down into small pieces so that you can understand the why behind every concept, not just a whole bunch of practice problems that are kind of just meaningless, mindless, giving you a sense of progress, but you get blindsided on the exam. I have high quality practice problems with detailed solutions, a whole spectrum of practice problems. Now, not every single problem that I have in my program is meant to be exam level difficulty. The quiz problems tend to be a little bit easier because they're sort of a warm up, help you actively recall what you just learned in the lecture. Then the mini exams problems are a step up, more difficult under time pressure. And then the homework assignment problems are a little bit more difficult, more convoluted questions. Sometimes those questions can take you up to 10 minutes to solve the questions. But I use those questions during my live training as an opportunity to explain you the concepts inside out a little bit more deeply. And then finally, my computer simulated practice exams are probably the same level of difficulty as the actual exam. So there is a whole spectrum of difficulty. And the study guide problems also have a whole spectrum of difficulty. And each practice problem is meant to help you improve your understanding. I will be onboarding you one-on-one. Myself, and especially those of you who sign up sooner. I have a lot of students enrolling as part of New Year resolutions. So the sooner you sign up, the faster I'll be able to start your onboarding process, and you will have exclusive community access, which is moderated by my teaching assistants. So I've been doing this for more than 10 years. My study guide first edition was published on 13th of November 2015. There's more than, if I start counting from that particular point, it's been more than 10 years since I've been helping electrical engineers with their PE licensure, and thousands of engineers have basically gone through this program. You are not a guinea pig that's being tested with this program. It has worked for tons of engineers, even non-electrical engineers who've gone through my program and gotten it done in the first attempt. So if you go to my website, studyforfe.com, right now, you're going to find a limited time sale that I'm running for both my FE electrical and PE power programs. The live training is part of the bundle that is for FE electrical and PE power. If you want to make use of just the on-demand program, a lot of folks are able to pass these exams just using my books, let alone the on-demand program. So the study guide is going to help you with a whole bunch of meaningful practice problems with detailed solutions that can help fill in the gaps. Next level up is the on-demand program. The on-demand program helps you self-study, work through everything sequentially, and isolate the concepts. And you'll also have access to my community. And the next level up beyond that, where you get real-time access to me on a weekly basis, twice a week, is my live training bundle. And we basically work through it in a systematic manner. I will be personally onboarding you, as I said. The sooner you're able to sign up, the sooner you'll be able to get started with the program. I have a full-length computer science practice exam. There is also a crash course masterclass. I'll show you guys, give you a little bit of a demo. And if for whatever reason, if you don't like the program, you don't like the interface, you don't like my explanations, you don't like my voice, you can get 100% refund within the first 14 days, less than 10% completion of the program. Send me an email, I'll initiate a refund. And for those of you who are signing up for the 6 month or the 12-month bundles, the ones that include the live training, you don't have to repurchase a program. If you fail the exam, after enrolling in my program, there will be free retake, free extension. Okay. So it's complete no-brainer. So you just have to put in the time and effort and work through it, and you'll get the job done. I'm going to switch my screen over here and give you guys a little bit of an overview. Let me know when you can see it. And you can see it now. So I have tons and tons of student testimonials. Every week, students are basically passing these exams. All of these are LinkedIn testimonials. Okay, they're verifiable LinkedIn testimonials. You click here, you're going to see this is a LinkedIn post. The person who made this post has, I don't know, 500, 400, active connections. And then similarly, all of these FE electrical, PE power, some recent graduates, some have been out of school for a lot of time. Some are internationally trained engineers, right? I think this particular student wrote the post in both English, and I'm assuming that this is Spanish, right? So internationally trained engineers going through the program, recent graduates going through the program, and tons and tons and tons and tons of verifiable LinkedIn posts and reviews. Within my course community, I have students who are basically posting every single week, passing the exam, be passed, first attempt, second attempt. And when you look at, like, let's say fourth attempt, let's check this out. Was this a fourth attempt with me? No, it was the first attempt using my program. But this particular student was at it for the last couple of years and worked through it systematically and got the job done. And similarly, like tons and tons of these success stories. So let me show you how the program is organized. This is FE electrical. The P power is organized the same way, but it's a lot more deeper. So we have 17 sections. Remember, I told you guys on the FE electrical and computer exam. So section number 1, big 5, mathematics. Every single concept, straight line, you might have first come across straight line in your high school. I break it down into small pieces, and then the quizzes, and then quadratic equation. So it starts off very easy, very simple, very straightforward. Logarithms, complex numbers, discrete mathematics, conic sections. In the FE reference handbook, they don't have all the different forms of the conic section. I basically break it down into, first of all, individually, parabola, ellipse, hyperbola. And then within parabola, when you look at it, the FE reference handbook just gives you a standard form of parabola that is opening to the right. I actually walk you through all 4 different types of parabolas: opening to the right, opening to the left. So I actually tell you, check this out, compare it with the FE reference handbook. What do you find? The FE reference handbook only contains the one on the left. I walk you through all the 4 different types. There's a PDF that you can download. The downloadable PDF is going to allow you to sort of use this as note taking, helps you speed up your learning process. You can pay attention more to my explanations and in lecture practice problems. And the lectures on average are about 15 to 20 minutes, in some cases up to 30 minutes, but I try to keep it within 15 to 20 minutes. Okay. And then within these lectures, you're going to find that I have calculators. I have dedicated lectures for calculators explaining you different calculators, Casio, NTI 36. And at the end of every single section, you will have a holistic test on the entire topic. So the mini exam for mathematics is going to have 25 plus lectures, sorry, questions. So I'll show you, those of you who've taken the FE exam, you will probably remember this. The interface of this mini exam is identical to the actual exam. So let's check this out. And you're going to be exposed to this about 17 times in the on-demand course alone, and then full then computer simulated practice exams on top of that. So those of you who have seen the FE electrical and computer exam, attempted it, this is the actual interface, right? So if by the time you're done with my program, you get exposed to this interface so many times that the fear of the exam and the interface is just completely disappear. There is a clock staring at you, 3 minutes per question. You can flag the questions. There is a navigation bar. You can click next, 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 right? And there's a diagnostics that will be generated showing you exact performance and the whole 9 yards, right? Similarly with probability, now this is relatively easy topic, probability, but within probability, there are certain topics you guys know, such as Bayes' theorem, which is very challenging. It can be very complicated. So my approach is that I go ahead and derive the entire Bayes' theorem for you using laws of total probability and condition probability from scratch. You probably have never come across this derivation ever before. And then within the lecture, I have multiple practice problems that I solve for you. And then knowing that this is a difficult topic, I do additional practice problems for you. And then I include deep dives and quiz problems. And same thing, the mini exam for probability, right? So these are still relatively easy topics. When we get to engineering economics, interest rate is a pain in the neck. If you don't understand interest rate for engineering economics, you are really not going to make much of progress. So do you really understand the difference between nominal or stated interest rate per period, when do we need to use the effective interest rate, and so on. And you're going to see that everything is broken down into smaller chunks. And then another big five topic, our circuit analysis, KCL, additional practice problems for KCL, KCL deep dive, KVL, additional practice problems for KVL, additional practice problems for series parallel arrangement, Norton theorem, Thevenin theorem, dependent sources, anything and everything that you can imagine in the context of FE electrical and computer exam preparation for circuit analysis is going to be provided and explained in depth. Okay, and with in-lecture practice problems for you as well. Then we have things like convolution, one of the most challenging topics on the entire exam. And electronics, a lot of people are scared of electronics because they're like, oh, I don't remember electronics. I took it a while back. I don't have understanding. I break it down. Ideal diode, non-ideal diode, additional practice forms, Zener diode, deep dives, additional practice forms on Zener diode, BJTs, introduction, NPN BJTs, additional practice forms for NPN BJTs, PNP transistors, additional practice problems for PNP transistors, deep dives, small signal AC analysis, anything and everything that you can imagine. Op-amps, 5-part multi-lecture series, if you count in these additional practice problems, working through it systematically, same thing with power systems. So let's jump right into computer section. So communications, for example, AM modulation, this is one of the convoluted topics on the exam. Angle modulation, Fourier series, computer networks. This is one of the lightest topics on the actual exam, computer networks, by the way, but they have a lot of content in the reference handbook, about 16 pages of reference materials. Okay. So the point is that if you want a one-stop shop that can guide you from top to bottom and help you with your exam preparation, you don't need to look any further. Whether you have zero background in software engineering or you are working as a programmer at Microsoft, this will be a good refresher for you. And in the context of FE electrical and computer exam. So on top of that, those of you who are interested in a little bit additional support and a little bit more depth, then I have the masterclass, which is a crash course review. Remember, in mathematics, we had 20 plus lectures. So I compress everything in mathematics in 2 modules. Same thing for engineering economics and everything. With about 24 hours of runtime, the masterclass gives you a full-blown review of the entire exam specification. And this is something that a lot of my students find super helpful 1 to 2 weeks before the actual exam. This is only included in the on-demand plus live training bundle. And the live training, so the live training is starting in about 13 days. And we're going to tackle the big five topics first for FE electrical and computer. And then we're going to dive into all the other topics. I conduct this on Saturdays and Sundays. So just to give you an idea of how the live training is conducted, every week I basically assign you a PDF of homework assignments. These are a little bit more challenging, more detailed, comprehensive, a little bit level 3 type of problems. And I give you the homework solutions right up front. And then in the actual session, I walk you through all the topics that are involved for that particular session. And it will allow you to basically have real time access to me and get any type of doubts addressed. So I wrapped up my fall 2025 live training session, started on 13th of September, ended on November 30th around Thanksgiving. Tons of students in the month of December took the exam, and you can see all of that in the success stories that have basically come up. FE Electrical first try, pass FE Electrical 5 years later. So these are all December stories, right, that you see. Yeah, so that's basically the modus operandus for the FE Electrical. Now, within the community, right, you see over here, if you have any question for mathematics, you can ask a question and it will get responded by my TAs in a very short period of time. Student took a screenshot of a quiz problem, and then my TA, well, you're gonna see that would be responding to that and explained it right away, right? If you have a question from probability and stats, and this is exclusive, this is not an open community. It is only for students who are part of my program. So students asking questions from probability, normal distribution, why this, why not that, by using FZ and RZ, and then the TA basically responded in detail and explained it, right? And same thing for my P Power program. I have exclusive community. If you ever have any questions, you can ask the questions and the TAs are going to be responding to them. So let's quickly give you an overview of instrument transformers, which is the very first topic in the P Power. This is the on-demand course. Remember, I told you that there is no mention of instrument transformers in the entire specification, in the entire reference handbook. Right up front, I have a 5-part lecture series on instrument transformer with conceptual corners, quizzes. The quizzes are of two categories in P Power: warm-up quiz and challenge quiz. Warm-up quiz are a little bit more like just to warm up, get you started with the basic concepts, and challenge quizzes are a little bit more involved, a little bit more technical and detailed. But the point over here is that for a topic that is not even mentioned in the reference handbook, I have 5-part lecture series explaining you inside out of knee point, saturation, ratio errors, terminology associated with the instrument transformers. And anything that is remotely hinted either in the sample exam or the reference handbook or the specification, I go all in. There is no mention of power per measurement 2 watt meter method in the exam specification or the reference handbook, but the NCS sample exam has one question, and that question deals with 2 watt meter method. And I went through 2 watt meter method derivation from scratch for my students, explained them inside out in terms of different types of scenarios, lagging, leading, how do you handle the wiring, how do you handle the equations, and then the quizzes. So if anything, you're going to be over prepared for this exam. One of the things with the P Power exam preparation is that you got to keep the preparation momentum. That's true for FE electrical as well, consistent. You got to keep going at it in a relatively tight timeline. And the tight timeline for P Power, on the higher end, it can be up to 8 months. But don't take extensive breaks during your preparation. And that's where I want to show you the codes and standards over here as well. So I have multi-part lecture series on NEC. Part 1, introduction and layout. Those of you who work with NEC know that it's very difficult. The most difficult part of NEC is really navigation, getting used to the references, cross-referencing that happens in NEC. Then you have conductor sizing, you have overcurrent protection as a separate part. You have raceway junction box sizing as a separate part. You have motors as a separate part, transformers as a separate part. Every single major piece of NEC is broken out and explained in depth with quizzes and practice problems and so on, and strategic review. I have like downloadable spreadsheets that include some of the most commonly used sections of NEC so that you can develop familiarity with them. And same thing with NESC, same thing with NFP 70E, same thing with NEC, same thing with NFP 497, 499, and 30B. So in order to stay on track, so the masterclass, the same concept, it's a crash course review of the entire P-Power exam specification. Typically, a lot of students use it in the last few days before the exam, last couple of weeks. And in order to stay on track, the live training is going to be super helpful. if you want to get this once and one and done in a relatively short period of time. Because every week I outline what topics we're going to be tackling. So week number one is measurement instrumentation. We're going to work through instrument transformer, power measurement, insulation testing. I'm going to give you homework assignments. I'm going to outline the lecture topics that you need to complete during the weekdays. And then and I'll give you the homework solutions. And then during the call, I'm basically going to connect all the dots for you. You'll have real-time access to me and we'll work through it systematically. And by what's the date? 1st of April. So 31st of March is basically the final session on productive relaying. But by 1st of April, we'll be done with it. And a lot of my students who are enrolling in my P Power program and FE electrical program are scheduled to take the exam end of April, early May. I wrapped up my fall 2025 live training classes for P Power. They started on 9th of September, and we got done 22nd or 26th of November, and a whole bunch of students have basically taken the exam and passed the exam. Okay, so this is the long and short of these programs. And if you go to the website studyforfe.com, as I said, you're going to find this special New Year discount, and you can click on F Electrical P Power. There are different types of plans. The on-demand plus live training bundles are the ones that include the live training and the masterclass. All right, that brings me to the end of the session. And again, if you guys are interested, serious about F Electrical P Power preparation, please check out my website at studyforfe.com. There is a sale that is going on for a limited time, and I will be more than happy to fast track your onboarding. Just send me a quick email. You're going to receive a welcome email. I'll get started with your onboarding process, and just send me an email and be like, Wasim, I attended this webinar you conducted today on January 4th, and you promised that you're going to fast track my onboarding. So please give me some priority treatment. I will go ahead and try to open up some additional time slots for one-on-one onboarding, and we'll help you get started. So let's make 2026 the year, guys, that we get the P Power exam preparation done, FE electrical preparation done, and hopefully get the licenses done. And that will be one of the best things, trust me, that you will be doing for your career. If you have questions, you need to follow up. Feel free to send your questions. I'll try to respond to them as soon as possible. And I can already see some of the students have signed up for the program. Thank you very much for trusting me. More than your wallet, you're going to be basically trusting me with your time. And I recognize it and respect it. And I'll do my best to help you get the results and support you every single step of your P licensing journey. All right, take care. Thanks, guys. Bye.